Greetings, brothers and sisters, and other Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. M&F and flies.
They're dropping like flies.
Listen, people are dropping like flies out there.
I am
Boop.
pissed off.
We're dropping like flies around here.
We're dropping like flies here.
Jeez, sir, 2 more just went down. Dropping like flies.
Too many people around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast.
Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Crush that fly.
So somebody sent me a very funny video. And the video's here. There's the title of the article. Kitty ankle monitor mocks house arrest to confine kids. Little yikes. And unfortunately, the guy who put the video together decided to use a Taylor Swift song for no reason. It doesn't, and I always say that. Music doesn't enhance something when you're actually got a good quality video. But apparently there is a product here where your kid can wear this around their ankle and you can get a phone alert when they leave the room. I guess it's for timeouts or whatever it is. It's that much closer to shipping somebody. There's the phone tracker. There's you can make it so, I'll show you the video here in a second. You can say which, and you can also zap them. You can zap them. It has its own little buzz thing. So here's the video where somebody sent me on Facebook. It's also on TikTok. And it's very funny what the guy says. But they play the stupid Taylor Swift song, so I can't show you the video. You can find it somewhere. And so you put it on here with, you screw it on. So the kid can't get it off, because the kid doesn't have an Allen wrench. And then it says here, let me see the thing. You can block off, this is the house, so you can show this is the green zone. This is where the kid can go. Anywhere else, it'll send an alert to your phone. He's blocking it off here with the red. Those are no-go zones. And when the kid leaves his room, you can do a number of different things, including zap him, he said, which is very therapeutic for me. That's what the guy says in the video. And so, yeah, that happened. So my wife sent me this. We can do this. And I don't know if this is a official list. This is the media partners from, COVID media partners that were partnering with the government on this, what can only be considered propaganda. I got a bunch of celebrity stuff to get to. I want to say that. I have a lot of things. I'm starting over here on my regular toolbar. I have a toolbar where my Instagool is open. And the majority of things that I get sent are people sending me messages on Instagool. But I have all these things that are organic stories that I found myself that were just, in the news about celebrities just crumbling all over the place. So there's a lot more to come here. This is the more, stuff to do with COVID. But this is the long list of all these various, it goes on for 116 pages of partners that partnered with the whole COVID agenda. Famous Freemason, Buzz Aldrin, married she's 65 or something like this. Her name is Dr. Anka Frior. She has a doctor or a PhD or something. This is Buzz Aldrin, an alleged moon-going astronaut that has had multiple weird issues personally in his life. Like he's slapped a guy who was harassing him. The guy was being a real douche. But he's a Freemason, and the Freemasons in England celebrated his accomplishment. And now he's marrying his much younger wife. So again, I'm over the Sound of Freedom stuff. I don't, this is just residual things that are coming up. People are sending me these things. Sound of Freedom this summer's surprise blockbuster is fronted by a QAnon supporter and financed by a man who defrauded Medicaid. I had a lot of people saying, this isn't QBs. This isn't a QAnon thing. Come on. Everybody knows it is. Like, even if they don't say it, it is. It's definitely has, like 80% of the people in the theater are going to be QBs or former QBs. But then there was this Sound of Freedom funder charged with child kidnapping. And this is a guy who's had a problem with underage women or girls. His name is Fabian Marta, who contributed $5 million crowdfunding investment that helped Sound of Freedom see the light of day, has been arrested on child kidnapping charges. He has a history of this type of behavior. And he was involved in this guy Fabian Marta charges against Sound of Freedom funder explored in wake of arrest. Fabian Marta is a professional groomer who pimps girls and women of all ages, was arrested for alleged felony child kidnapping on July 21st. He is known to fund sugar baby and sugar daddy parties and is also believed to have funded the controversial movie Sound of Freedom, which incidentally deals with child trafficking as well. And so, oops, that's what they got going on. The Sound of Freedom is just saturated with this kind of stuff. This is from Reddit here, but that happened. So one of my viewers sent me a message on Facebook with another article just now, and it says here, one of the thousands of patrons who crowdfunded anti-child trafficking film Sound of Freedom. So he crowdfunded it. He didn't have direct contact with the movie, so that's, a little bit less. But when you Sound of Freedom people, like, I don't know if they are still left here, people who enjoyed the movie, I said things that they didn't agree with or whatever. But, I'm right. Like, it's not a, question of being right or not. It's a question of them not being able to handle the truth, right? I want to revisit a comment from yesterday at the end of this video. I'm going to do revisit the comment I covered yesterday. The comment is about Sound of Freedom. The comment is about somebody saying I should get into dialogue and conversation with my viewers. And that's not what I do here, and I really don't want to do that. Like, I'm not interested in your views because I'm not even interested in my own views. Like, our belief system should be transitory. If you're on a pathway to be with God, and I'll talk about this later in the end of the video. But when you're on a pathway to be with God, when you're on a spiritual pathway, you're expanding your consciousness. So your beliefs are always changing, right? But what I want to say here about the Sound of Freedom that is, and the people who like the movie, what I do here is I present information and, maybe some entertainment to, the people enjoy the jokes I make, things like that. Information and entertainment and opportunity and energy. And it's a take it or leave it kind of situation, right? You either feel like you benefit from it, my point of view, the way I see the world, through my, whatever lens I have, the way I can present information, whatever reason you find some benefit in these videos, it's a take it or leave it situation. But I'm not starting a movement, and I don't care if you stay or go. Of course, I want viewers. I want more and more viewers, but only people who benefit. I don't want people to be here because of some other reason. The only reason I would want people to be here is because they are getting something out of the videos, right? The same thing for the Gratefullness meditation that I do, which is just as the old Saj Marg that we're doing kind of separately as a group because of the collapse of the Heartfulness organization. But again, it's, if you're benefiting from it, great, and you want to do it, great, and you're grateful for it, sure, that's all wonderful. But I'm not, I don't beg for subscribers, and I don't, please subscribe. I don't do any of that stuff here. Because, it should sell itself. The quality of my video should sell itself, and if they don't, if I somehow am not able to have a big enough audience so I can make enough money to call this a job, then I'll do something else, right? And I'll just move on. But you Sound of Freedom people and Cubies, you have a goal of ending child trafficking, which is one of your premier, you want to use the political system, you want to use the media, you want to use social media to push your agenda. And to do that, you can't be, a joke. And this is what's happened to you because of the Q movement. Like, you're not understanding. These people keep on saying, oh, the Sound of Freedom has nothing to do with Q. Well, it does, because It's QB adjacent, and everybody knows it. And the people that are involved are certainly, they were either former QBs or they still subscribe to this, and the audience that you have is made up of QBs. Like, this is a movie that's going to appeal to QBs. And so whether you call yourself a QB or you were a former QB or reformed QB or you were just QB adjacent, your movement has been torpedoed by how stupid the Q movement was. And I warned you and I told you, all the QBs, and so did other people, but you wouldn't listen because you're too wrapped up in your own myopic view of the world, and you hurt all of us. And, that's where the anger and resentment and frustration from the rest of us comes from, that the QBs screwed us all and certainly screwed this movie and screwed this movement. Again, I don't think the movie's legit. I think the movie's just an extension. I think the movie was made by the same people that were Q. I think Q made this movie, like the government operatives, the Department of Homeland Security operatives that put out the Q message on 4chan also made this movie. I think it's a part of their whole agenda. But you got to understand the damage that was done. And like I said so many times when I was covering this, if you guys want to get this done, you want to end child trafficking, you better find some liberals and some independents and, truthers that are willing to work with you. And you're not going to get that because of the damage that Q did. And you're always going to be, these things are always going to be linked to Q and the QBs. And you got to realize that, because you're not going to have a movement if it's just a bunch of you, QBs and former QBs and adjacent QBs doing the same thing you did before. No matter how much money you can raise and how much you can talk about this on the internet, you're not going to stop any kind of child trafficking thing on your own. Like, you guys suck. You don't have a plan. You didn't have a plan. You just react emotionally and you do stupid stuff. You're not, you're not quality people. You're not, you're not a group of people that's going to accomplish something. Your emotions and your outrage isn't going to accomplish something. You need people who know how to change the structure of the system. You have to work on a political level. You have to work on an information level where you don't piss everybody else off. You have to destroy the link between your movement and QBs, which is going to be hard to do because the QBs, went all in on that. And you have to, do a lot of things that you don't know how to do. Your movement just walks into traps and does stupid things and, gets profiled and, wrecks everything for everybody else. That's what you guys are good at. That's what the QBs were good at. And so, and leaving stupid comments and just pissing everybody else off. Like, that's your specialty. That's your forte. Doing smart quality work that will end child trafficking, that has to be like people that are beyond you. And that's who you have to get to do this. And you have to win them over, and you have to, whatever. Or just get out of the way and support them in some way. But you're not capable of that because, they're QBs. But that's what I've been saying all along about this thing. That the narrative is always going to go against you because the damage that the QBs did. Anyways, let's get back to it here. Notice the cross Jim Caviezel is wearing is the same that Aleister Crowley references as Baphomet. So there's the Aleister Crowley Baphomet, and there's what Jim Caviezel was wearing. U.S. moves to put Marines on commercial ships to stop Iranian seizures. And so Iran is just acting out because America's spread thin, and the thing with Russia and China, and Iran is like, well, you guys are weak now. They're trying to take down Iran a while back, and now they're, Iran's just eating their lunch, because of being bonus holes. This is my bonus hole thing that America's turned into a, bonus hole. Grab them by the bonus hole. But also, you could look at it like America's getting punked. And there's another crime thing I'll show you in a moment. Whatever, it's coming up in the, I'm in editing, it's coming up in a bit here. And so there's crime that's just happening, and people realize that you can't do anything, Americans can't do anything to defend themselves or stop the crime from happening. And now it's happening on a worldwide basis where these countries are eating America's lunch because they know that America's spread through thin. And, this is, America getting punked or America's a bonus hole. Same thing, right? So, Mike Breen reacts to ESPN firing of Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. Storied commentator Mike Breen, he is wins the Emmy. I don't know how many Emmys he's won. And again, I don't care about awards. I think awards are stupid, but he's won the play-by-play announcer, best play-by-play announcer in 2022 and 2023, which is partly because he's a part of a team here, right? And it doesn't seem like a big deal to people who don't watch sports or aren't interested in basketball or any of this stuff. But for those of us who watch it, we see the difference between watching a game with crappy announcers who you just wish would shut up because they're annoying to listen to, and you might want to watch the game, but you turn it off because the announcing's so bad, or you have to mute it out or whatever, right? And it's significant. And so this guy and these two guys were the best, the best announcing crew, certainly in basketball. And this is what Mike Breen said. It's sad because we really thought we had something special and we were able to do it longer than anybody ever did. You don't expect it because it was such a great team, and to have it completely broken up was a surprise. They've been working together for over 30 years. And, I think they've gotten better over the time period. In terms of entertainment, this is entertainment, right? And the broadcasting team is a part of making the game entertaining. A long time ago, they tried a football game without announcers. And it was really hard to watch. I was surprised at how unappealing it was. Like, the announcers are there to sell the game as being interesting. And when you're watching the game without announcers and just on TV, it's a little different if you're there live. But you're watching it on, when you're watching it on TV, it's not that interesting, right? If you turn the sound off, you realize how much the announcers sell the game to you because, they're basically shills for the game. The other part is the personal part, and that's tougher. Now we're going to be friends until the day we die. Those guys taught me so much about what I know about the NBA. I've learned more from those two than anybody. But they've also taught me about stuff that was nothing to do with basketball. I look up to both of them because not just their talent as broadcasters, but the kind of men they are. I just feel so privileged to have that time. I've always said I've been honored to call the finals every year. But what made it special for me is I got to call it with those two, and seeing it come to an end, it's hard to come to grips with. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because it makes no sense at all. Now, I don't know how much money they were making, probably some millions of dollars a year. And so it says that Jeff Van Gundy made $2 million a year. It's harder to get Mark Jackson's number because they want to talk about his money that he made as a player, but I assume it's probably the same. So they're making $2 million each. Doris Burke, who's replacing one of them, makes $1 million a year at ESPN. She'll probably get some sort of a promotional bump in her salary. And they'll probably hire Doc Rivers for whatever she's making. And they'll be their premier team. And so it's not that much money in terms of the quality of the announcing. Now, people are still going to watch NBA games. It might not affect the viewership, but it's going to suck way worse. Doris Burke is, I don't want to say she's unwatchable, but it's a lot of cringe. It's like listening to your grandmother call a basketball game. And Doc Rivers has a horrible voice and a bad personality. I think he did announcing before, but his voice is gone. And it's like RFK kind of a voice. It gets hoarser and hoarser, except you can struggle through RFK because he says incredible things, right? RFK has got great stories and he has, interesting points. So you're willing to tolerate his voice. Whereas Doc Rivers has a kind of a bad attitude. He's very grumpy. He's not funny, and he might have some insightful basketball points, but it's going to be hard to listen to. He's even probably worse than Doris Burke. And it's a huge fall off. Like, you have the number one team that's been together for 30 years that helps enhance the NBA games. And again, there's no competition because there's TNT, but ESPN and TNT are the two networks that have basketball contracts. And I bet TNT would be willing to hire Van Gundy and Mark Jackson and Mike Breen over there. And it would be, you know, they wouldn't get to call the NBA Finals because that's ESPN, but they would be a better broadcasting team. I don't know what they're, you know, whatever it is. But it's, you know, to me, a sign of the collapse. Like when you do things that don't make sense, right? Your ESPN and Disney is so broke, they're getting rid of the best announcing team in the business, like, you know, Emmy award-winning announcing team, right? It's, you know, everyone in the sports world is kind of shocked. And Mike Breen doesn't say, oh, I can't wait to work with Doris Burke and and Doc Rivers. I mean, he clearly is bummed by this because they've been together for so long and they're like friends and they hang out and, you know, they're entertaining and, you know, they probably have fun when they travel to, you know, various cities and whatever it is, right? And, you know, they have the privilege of being like the best in the business, and you don't fire the best in the business unless you're so broke yourself. Like, how bad is it over at Disney that they have to do this? You know, I'm in the editing process. I've talked about this maybe 2 or 3 times. I talked about when Jeff Van Gundy got fired. And I think maybe I mentioned it a second time, and then Mark Jackson got fired, and now this thing with so it's been 4 times here. And it seems like maybe not a big thing for people, but, you know, it's like when they got rid of food on planes. There was a time, if you ever see that movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, and Leonardo DiCaprio played a real-life con man that had worked out how to print airline checks, and he was using the airlines, flying all over the world for free, and then printing out paychecks. Like, he dressed up like a pilot and pretended to be a pilot on TWA. And it was when flying was like a luxury experience. There was a time where flying was fun. When I was a kid, I used to get a deck of playing cards every time I went, you know, like on a flight to Florida with my parents to see my grandparents. And, you know, I always had a good time in the airport and everyone was happy and you were going places. But then airlines started to run into financial trouble and they started to get rid of all the perks. And it became less and less great. And then, of course, happened with the big event in 2001 and, you know, all the security and then all the stuff with COVID. And now you go in, you feel like you're, again, locked in a prison. As soon as you pass through security, you're in a locked system. You're confined in that system, right? And, you know, you can leave, like in a hospital, you go to a hospital and it's like you need somebody's permission to leave the hospital, right? You know, somebody's got to sign you out. You just can't even, like, walk out. And, you know, like there's, when my first child was born, we were leaving the hospital and there were some, you know, the things that they were considering possible medical issues, but there was no real, no real medical issues, just that the kid was big. And, you know, it could be that he was at risk for gestational diabetes, but he wasn't. And we were leaving and the young OBGYN called and she didn't deliver the baby. She was out or whatever. And she was yelling at me over the phone saying, you're leaving an AMA against medical advice, right? And I'm like, you know, you're just some kid. I don't know, you know, like she was, you know, a young doctor or whatever. And there was no problems, but it was like you couldn't even leave the hospital. And there are these things that are like that, airlines now and, you know, hospitals, and you're in an enclosed environment, like a secure environment. And you have to pass through security, all these things. Going into like a big city court building and, you know, there's all this, I don't know. It's just, you know, it's not pleasant. It's not like it was back in America's glory days. And you see this more and more. They're just like, F you to the customers. You're going to come here no matter what. And you experience this at businesses. The customers are no longer right. You don't like it, get out of here, right? You know, and I kind of had that attitude, so I'm not like, you know, like that's what I have this attitude here. But, you know, I'm not a customer-friendly, you know, basing my self-esteem on how many subscribers I have or whatever it is, right? And so, you know, in terms of a business, and these are businesses, and, you know, taking a hostile approach to your customers and not giving them the best. Like ESPN is saying, well, you guys will settle for Doris Burke and Doc Rivers. We don't care. You'll watch anyway because, you know, that's how it is. You don't like it, you know, whatever. But let's say they lost substantial viewership because Doris Burke and Doc Rivers were sucky. or even partial viewership, it doesn't take much loss in viewership to account for $1 million salary, a couple $1 million in salary. I mean, it's a bad business move, but they don't care about it. They're just like, F you. And I mean, this is the new, this is what's happening. And I got more to cover tomorrow about Biden and the censorship of RFK. Like, they're taking that in censorship in general. The First Amendment is basically gone now. And, it has been for a while. We didn't know why. And it isn't that these private companies, these social media companies can't censor you. It's that it's coming from the government. And we'll get into that in a bit tomorrow. But let's get back to the other stuff here. Then my wife sent me this. That moment when you realize Oprah didn't bring you here for a new car. I don't know who this is, but she's getting introduced to however you want to say it. That is just that's a platinum meme. Why the died suddenly movement must die. Earlier this year, 18-year-old female athlete Victoria Lee died suddenly with no apparent cause, and the speculation about the reason for her passing began almost immediately. Tweets swirled that Lee would drop dead from cardiac issues as suspicions turned on COVID, and it's boop. The comment section of news stories were about her death were overtaken by boop skeptics, while tweets about her passing were also inundated with messages by boop doubters. In the statement, Lee's sister Angela begged people to stop Angela begged people to stop contacting us, stop hiring private investigators, stop with the conspiracy theories. Well, you shouldn't be contacting family members. Like, you just shouldn't be doing that. Like, why are you doing that, right? Why? Like, you can have your theories. Everyone can have them. You can express them on the internet. You leave the family alone, because no matter what happened, it doesn't matter to the family at this point. I mean, maybe they will be, maybe they won't be. Maybe they look for the truth, maybe they won't. Who knows? It's up to the family. Who knows what the truth actually is? But again, truthers have to learn to stop doing boop like this. They just do stupid stuff like this all the time. Just leave families out of it. Like, you should have recognized that all the way back to the Sandy Hook stuff. Leave families alone. Stay away from families of people who died or allegedly died, whatever they are. You think they're actors, whatever you think they are, stay away from them. It doesn't work out for you or anybody else. And again, if you're doing things like that, it makes it easy for agent provocateurs to go harass the families. So just don't do it, because then the story becomes about you instead of about what happened to the girl. A similar situation transpired after Buffalo Bills player DeMar Hamlin went to cardiac arrest early January, following the blow to the chest during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Although medical professionals immediately pinned the likely cause on a rare case of commotio cordis, which has turned out it's not that, their voices were drowned out by those, yet again, who were quick to blame the COVID bloop. And so Hamlin survived, but the swirl of social media suspicion roped in the died suddenly movement. What you could do is find out why young athletes are dropping like flies and why there's all this cardiac arrest. Because maybe if you were honest about that, we wouldn't see the die suddenly movement, right? Don't blame the movement. Blame whatever's causing young people to drop like flies. Something new has happened where there's an increase in young people. Like, I don't remember ever a professional football player or basketball player, other than the few times that they died of Marfan syndrome. There's a few players that, died of that. No professional players. And Len Bias died of an overdose of cocaine. But I never saw young players, especially high school age and college age athletes, drop like flies from heart attack. It's a new thing. And it's happening all the time. And blood clots along with it. And so it isn't the fault of the movement. It's a fault of whatever's causing it, right? And so this person's saying, we got to stop doing this. No, what you got to do is be honest and upfront about what's causing people to get heart attacks and drop like flies. I mean, could it be this? Justin Trudeau and wife Sophia Gregor announced separation. I don't have much to say about this. The Canadian truthers really hate this guy. I mean, they often comment about what a tool he is. And there's probably all this speculation I don't know about, but there's this another indication of things falling apart. French daredevil dies from 68th floor fall in Hong Kong. And so I don't know what he was doing there. He was scaling a skyscraper. And so he scales skyscrapers on the world, fell to his death from the tower in Hong Kong. You know, I guess he does stuff like this, and your luck eventually runs out. The impossible truth about Afghanistan, I don't know what this is, somebody sent it to me. In The Impossible Fact, the 20th century German poet Christian Morgenstern tells the story of an academic who undergoes a traumatizing experience. He staggers home, wraps damp cloths around his forehead, and collapses into his armchair to process what happened. In the end, he comforts himself by concluding that he must have imagined the whole thing, because if something shouldn't be true, it can't be true. To many in the West, an Afghanistan that flourishes under the Taliban, on even one that survives, cannot be possibly true. Under their rule, the country can only be a place of unremitting failure and misery. The decision of Tobias Ellwood, then, as a chair of the UK's Defence Select Committee, to post a video praising the Taliban for improving safety in Afghanistan, was never going to find a warm reception. Apparently, Afghanistan, this is what this article's about, is doing better economically in other ways post the exit of America and the other countries. And you know why? Because when you invade a country and you are occupying a country, it does worse. When there's an occupying force in a country, it always does as bad as it can do. It's only going to get better when the occupying force leaves, despite what the occupying force says. Britain said they didn't want to leave India because Pakistan, or what was the Muslim people and the Hindu people, were going to go to war because of the division there. And so what ended up happening is India and Pakistan divided into two different countries. Pakistan used to be a part of India, and the Muslim people went to live in Pakistan, and India, they still have tensions there, but both countries are doing better since the British left, regardless of the split and division in there. They're now, they're two countries that they now have created. All right, so here's all the celebrity stuff. Let's start with this one. This isn't celebrity, but it's coming. Cop human grandma Joanne Segovia, accused of running global fentanyl ring, is all smiles at Little League game despite potential 20-year sentence. So this is a woman who's going to a Little League game, even though that she has been accused of being fentanyl queen or kingpin or whatever. Uber CEO stunned by a $52 fare charged for a 3-mile ride to New York City. Wow, he said. Brazen bandits caught on video fleeing the LA Gucci store with luxury goods. We know this is happening. To the exception of, I didn't show the video itself, but those of you who saw it, I showed the first part of the video where there's an African-American guy saying to Middle Eastern store owners, I don't know what they all worked at the store. And he said, don't do anything. You got to wait till the cops get here. But the two Middle Eastern guys, this was in New York City, weren't having any of it. The guy came in with a trash can and just started loading up. And one guy took what looked like a cross between like a handle to a broom and a bat. Beat the guy senseless. I mean, he was whacking the crap out of him. But that guy's probably going to jail, the guy who beat him up, right? The guy who, in New York City, like all these criminals have rights and you can't physically assault them for stealing. And so even security guards are helpless to do anything. And they just watch these. If you go in there and you're willing to take the risk of being caught on camera or anything else, they really can't stop you. Like, they can't shoot you. They can't really, they'll go to jail for that. And so criminals have rights, apparently, and, that's what's happening. Husband desperately tried to save mom of two who died from drinking too much water. How do you do that? The husband of Indiana mom of two who died after she drank too much water desperately promoted CPR performed CPR on the stricken woman, but was unable to save her. Ashley Summers' husband, Cody, rushed into action when she suddenly fell backward and passed out, returning from a 4th of July outing on Lake Freeman with her 2 daughters, Brooklyn and Briley. It's really hot. It was really hot, and they were out on the water. She had a headache and felt really thirsty. She thought she must have been dehydrated, so she drank like 4 bottles of water in a half hour. So that's what killed her, water? You're saying water killed her. She got overheated. Cody gave her CPR and got her going a little bit, but by the time they got to the hospital and ran tests and everything, they had put her on a ventilator. By the time her brain had swelled enough that it shut all circulation off to her brain, and she was brain dead. Then this is the same publication, New York Post, that was saying we got stopped, died suddenly. Then that night she was gone. It's been a real shock for the kids and everyone. Well, if she well, here it is. That's a half gallon of water. That's what you're supposed to drink in a whole day, the news said. I drink in a whole gallon of water. I once, and I'm not recommending this because it felt bad, but I heard that if you drink enough water, you can get rid of migraines. This is when I was 20s. And I drank like a whole gallon of water, like close to it in a short period of time. And it did kind of get rid of my migraine, but I felt horrible. Like it was, I was constantly going to the bathroom. When I was working, I was waiting tables. But, we all drink that much water when it's really hot. People drink a ton of water. It's not water. My sister Holly called me, and she was an absolute wreck. She's like, Ashley is in the hospital. She has brain swelling. They don't know what's causing it. They don't know what they can do to get it to go down. It's not looking good. It was a shock to all of us when she first started talking about water toxicity. It was like, is this a thing? Water toxicity occurs when too much water is consumed in a short amount of time, or if the kidneys retain too much water due to underlying health conditions. It's not the water. Like if she had a kidney issue or whatever it is, or if there's something else here, the condition also can lead to insufficient salt in the blood, causing an electrolyte abnormality called hypoatremia. Who cares? Extreme instances, water toxicity. And so when water toxicity can cause headaches, vomiting, double vision, high blood pressure, difficulty breathing. Water toxicity. It's a thing. Beware of it. Like people are dropping like flies, died suddenly from water toxicity. Lizzo says lawsuit allegations are false, calls past few days gut-wrenchingly difficult. If her 3 former employees conspired to come up with this story, and I don't believe it because she's so depraved. Lizzo is depraved. She does depraved stuff. She has, a weird sexual thing she does on stage and in public, and she's an odd person. And everything that we've seen from Lizzo is consistent with the abuse, and it is very abusive because the people are starting to speak now more publicly. And so, I would severely doubt that they would make up a story like this, right? For money, sure, but they're never going to work again in this kind of capacity. These are, obese dancers that join her on stage. They have one shot at, Lizzo's going to cast them and not anybody else, right? She has, obese girls that do dancing, overweight women who do dancing with her. She's just, this should be something that she's Me Too'd for. She should be canceled. Trump judge irked former president with greeting and sent social media into a spin. The judge referred to him as Mr. Trump rather than Mr. President and left the hearing in D.C. Trump left the hearing in D.C. in a sour mood. Crocodile devours soccer player in Costa Rica before swimming away with body. Well, it didn't devour him if it was swimming away with the body. Devoured would mean he was in the crocodile's belly. 29-year-old guy You know, that happens sometimes. Crocodiles occasionally eat people. How Tori Spellling went from 90210 to living in an RV with her kids. Tori Spellling has reportedly been struggling monetarily in recent weeks following her split from husband Dean McDermott. On top of that, the mother of the 5 has been dealing with a toxic mold problem in her California home, forcing her and her 5 children to move into a cheap hotel and now an RV. Although Spelling is reportedly doing her best to make things work with her kids and take care of her kids, Beverly Hills 90210 alum is having difficult time finding a place to live because of her financial situation is not great. Now, the Spelling family, Aaron Spelling, he was a big-time producer and a very wealthy man, and that's why she was on the show in the first place, because, you know, she's kind of unlikable, and she's not good-looking, right? So all of this, you know, I don't know. Despite growing up in an ultra-wealthy family and making big bucks during her time as a reality TV star, the actress revealed in 2013 that saving money was never her strength. Well, you know, that's what you end up. How's that working out for you? She's in a some kind of seeker thing here, and she's, you know, there's that. And then Candy Spellin turns off comments after backlash over daughter Tori grandkids RV stay. No comments from Candy Spellin, who refuses to bail Tori Spellin out, and so let the punishment fit the crime. She dropped like flies. Her family all got sick, and they said it was from mold, but it sounded like it was from something else, right? So Reese Witherspoon and Jim Toth, divorce settlement revealed apparently she got divorced. I was starting to cover this, all these celebrity breakups and things, because there's a high rate of them. Celine Dion's sister says singer is struggling amid health battle. We can't find any medicine that works. Yeah, because they haven't discovered a cure for ghoul yet. There's no anti-ghouling medication out there. The best thing to do is not to become one. And she was, you know, she's been a ghoul for a while. Will Smith says, nobody in my family was happy after finding fame. Finally, you know, I said this years ago, there was Will Smith, Tom Hanks, and Ellen, who I started covering when I first started making like celebrity videos, and talked about how they all were given this good guy, likable, highly liked, highly popular celebrity moniker, where they were trusted celebrities. Of course, Ellen has been, you know, now everyone thinks she's evil. Tom Hanks, everyone thinks he's a perv. And Will Smith's whole world collapsed around him because they were never those people, right? And Will Smith has been somebody who has been in the closet in one way or another. He's either gay or bisexual, which is, you know, there's all this evidence to support that. And so he's been living a lie in that family. Nobody in his family was happy after the family propelled to global stardom in 2010. And if it's not going to make you happy, then what else is there, right? But this is all what I always say. It's kind of one of the, you know, the central points of my 2 channels here, is that wealth and fame and power and any of these things, celebrity, makes you unhappy. It actually has a counter effect. And all these people who attain that become less happy. I mean, it's, you know, it's just facts. And there's one more thing about the Will Smith stuff, because I talked about him having the good guy moniker with Tom Hanks and, you know, Ellen, which I just, you know, referred to. And like none of those people are considered good people anymore, right? They've all collapsed. Something I, you know, covered years ago. But he also is very similar to Madonna, Madam Expiration Date, that he is like so empty inside, he couldn't handle no longer being an A-list celebrity. He got his own YouTube channel. He got permission to bungee jump over the Grand Canyon. He started to do all these weird vacations, and he was doing all this stuff to confront his fears, things that he was scared of, like he was a young person. You know, he's in his 50s. And, you know, it's really embarrassing. Just to person desperately seeking to regain his once his famous position. He's got lots of money, and he's just like Madam Expiration Date, who's also a big social media hoe, right? Both of them are. I mean, you didn't get enough attention, right? You weren't fed enough. In one of my older videos of Madam Expiration Day, I don't know where it is, or it's probably not even public anymore, but it was, I found an old Oprah Winfrey clip that I saw. Somehow I saw that. Like, I didn't watch Oprah Winfrey when she was in her heyday, but I saw this clip, and I didn't watch Madonna, but somehow I saw this. And Madonna was saying that at a certain time when she was the number one female artist, that she would go to these concerts and she needed to be fed by all the, energy from the crowd, all these things, that she needed it to, feed her, right? And there's a lot of celebrities who need that. But we know it isn't something that sustains anyone. You have to connect inwardly and be fed from inside. You have to connect to God. And if you look for love outside, you look for somebody to love you in some kind of way that builds you up. There's a lot of people out there, they're looking for the fairy tale love story that they can feed off the love from the other person. And, ultimately, if you don't have that inside you, if you don't have some, something inside of you, a connection to God and some internal resources, some internal, like a bank of love, lots of people are just bankrupt. You can't get that from other people. You can't sustain yourself from the love that other people have for you, or the love you get from fame or money or success or any of these things that boost your ego. Your ego is getting boosted doesn't transform into love and into prana, into real self-esteem and these things. It means your ego feels good about itself, that you accomplished something, but it doesn't really. It's not a goal within itself, right? It's not the goal that we have here on planet Earth. And with that, I got this comment yesterday. I'll read it in a second. I got a few other comments about that comment, but there was one comment where the person, that's about the Journey series. I'll read that when I do the Journey series. It was a comment, about how I can improve my viewership by addressing, well, I'll read the comment in a second. But one of the things I said was that, I'm people's dirty little secret. Like, they don't show my stuff on Facebook or social media or whatever, which of course now, that sort of era has ended anyway in the truth community. People don't talk about me to their friends. So there's people who find my channel, but it ends with them, right? And I got a number of people who said, well, I'm not ashamed of you, and we're not ashamed of you speaking for everybody, but you can't speak for everybody. But they said, they don't have any friends that are truthers, or, they, even if they posted this stuff on Facebook, it wouldn't do any good, and, people aren't like them and all this stuff, which I understand. That's not what I'm talking about, though. I was talking about, like, some years ago, and I haven't done this in a while, I was getting lots of comments from people saying how much they loved me and my show or whatever, and how much it had done for them. And I, for a while I didn't even think much about it, but then I started to look at their, there's people who are friends of mine on Facebook or something. I would look at their Facebook feed, and they would have other truthers, ones maybe who were Christian or ones who, they were whatever it was, but they wouldn't be posting my stuff, right? Which, so I started to doubt people saying stuff like that, because they probably say that, to everybody, but they're not really helping me out, which would be to share the stuff. And, it was a number of people. Like, I observed it for a year or two. Whenever someone would write me a comment, if it was on Facebook or Instagram or something like this, I'd look at their page, and it was clear to me that they would post other things that were truth-oriented, but not my stuff. And so, maybe they were sincere, maybe they weren't, who knows, But, I got that was not an avenue in which I could grow my channel, right? And my wife says she remembers when, we got together, when I was close to 100,000 subscribers. And at that time, I was getting 100 new subscribers a day. That's before they started purging subscribers, whatever YouTube, did all those things. And since then, YouTube has got more and more constrictive about recommending my videos and other videos like it, other channels like it, right? And, things that aren't authoritarian news or other things that they want to promote. YouTube has certainly channels that suck. Most of the channels they promote suck one way or another. Not just because they're not truthers, but they're not good content, but that's the channels they seem to like. And once YouTube did that, like my channel there was no real avenue for me to continue growing, and I'm always going to lose people after a while. Like people get bored with it, or, just get tired of it, or they'll forget it, they'll move on to something else, or I'll say something that hurts or whatever it might be. And so to do this, you need an influx of people. And getting recommended on a platform and, having people see or being in search engines, which, I no longer am. Even if you Google Pockets of the Future on Google, my channel doesn't even come up, right? Like it's that bad. Like it doesn't even register. So people who forget about me and they want to come back can't even find me. They can search YouTube. It gets a little bit better, but I'm not the top result, even though it's a term that, a phrase I coined and invented, and now, other people are using it. And, I'm the most successful Pockets of the Future and first. And, I benefited Google quite a bit in terms of bringing in revenue and, helping them out on their platform or whatever. They're still not, making me available on their search engine. And so that's, the reality of my situation. And so, there isn't any path forward for me to bring people in. I used to have videos that would get millions of views, and I used to cover things that were more sensationalized. And, now I'm a very specific, someone called me a post-truther, the whole truth movement collapsing. And, my audience has become more and more limited to people who can rise up behind all the BS of the truth community, as well as the rest of it. So, that is whatever it is. And I've kind of accepted it. So running ads is like, sort of a desperate attempt. The ads are now kind of working. I have an ad running on Apocalypse Now and one on Pockets of the Future, and it's less than $1 per subscriber. And I don't know if subscribers is the answer, but I'm getting new viewers, and it's a way to bring new viewers in. And maybe YouTube will, maybe it'll change the algorithm's perception of my channel as well. I don't know if, I'm hoping that by, paying them protection money, basically, because this is something they used to do for free and now I have to pay for it. So, that's all, whatever that is. But with that, let me read the comment, because I'm getting away from the kind of funny part about this. So the person said, there are other ways to get new subscribers than ads, and ones that will sincerely value your content. You offer a lot, and we're very appreciative, even if we see things differently sometimes, very much so. For example, not banning legitimate comments that challenge you in your firm beliefs, rather engaging them and giving them honest consideration, especially on some major topics, i.e. COVID and virology and on the whole. Just one example. Not talking about the low-hanging fruit, which is this comment is, which you usually make an example of in your comment videos. You challenge us on our beliefs, which is great. It's your channel and free to do so. You will, of course. Been following you for over a decade. You've made it clear in previous comment videos that are not that's not overly important. Maybe there are wider doors of perception that are being knocked on, waiting for you to open. Sincerely appreciate your content. And so the part that I commented on this quite, lengthy comment yesterday, but I thought about this after I published the video, when the person said, for example, not banning legitimate comments that challenge you and your firm beliefs, rather engage them in giving honest consideration, especially on some major topics, i.e. COVID and virology on the whole, just one example. And so that's not going to bring in new subscribers, first of all. That's stupid. What he's talking about there is retention, that I say things and I don't give open dialogue. But what the person really wants here is conversation. This person wants to be heard. There's lots of people who want me to listen to them, right? And, they want it to be a two-way street. which I can understand. That's natural human, whatever it is. Like people will write me paragraphs upon paragraphs of their life and their story. And, I don't care and I'm not interested in that. And not just because of the channel, like in life in general. Like I connect with people and I find some people interesting and I will ask them questions and I like listening to them. RFK Jr. is an example of that. His Kennedy stories and some of his things that he said are very interesting, right? The Kennedy family, which I never considered interesting before, but now I do, given, what's happening in the world. And there are people who are good storytellers, comedians, and, people who I find funny or entertaining or whatever. You're listening to somebody's story when you watch a movie or TV shows. But the majority of people have some sad sack tale. And I get them all the time. I was a counselor and I suck at listening to stuff when people whine about their problems or how they're a victim or, their analysis of things. And once I don't find something interesting or entertaining or unlikable in some way, I turn it off. Or I don't, and I'm not even looking for that for the most part, right? And so if I'm not interested in somebody or somebody's life or somebody's life story, I'm not really wanting to hear it, right? And it's a burden on my time and energy. And I'm not good at it. I would say I'm not a good listener, a compassionate listener in these things. And I'm not looking for relationships, right? And so, the value of my channel or content is my being able to say something that is valuable to you, whether it's the energy, the transmission, the energy from from doing Sage Mark for so long, or the insights or my pattern recognition or the jokes I make or something. It has to be something that entertains you. And that's as far as it goes, because a relationship isn't possible. I just don't have the time for it anymore. I used to interact with people and I used to have some, relationships with people where I've talked to people on the phone and, I've only seen a few people in real life, but I've had, back and forth and either chatting with people on, social media or whatever, or some kind of, phone contact with a few people, not that many, but, I used to have the time for it. I just don't anymore. And I certainly don't have the energy for it, right? And what this person is talking about is me being nicer to people, giving them something that they need back from me. But, what I'm offering here is all I got. Like, it's just what I have, right? And so, this is my only option, is doing the ads. And, I don't know any other way, because YouTube is going to get more and more constrictive. And the social media, people are less and less likely to, everyone's sort of boxed into their groups. And so, my channel's actually been shrinking now for about 5 years. And now YouTube is just paying less money for whatever reason. Either they're running less ads or they're paying less per ad. And so, I don't have a lot of options. I'll run the ads. I don't have much hope for them. They're at least better than the Google stuff I was doing before. And so other than that, I don't know, what I'm going to do. Unless something happens, right? Like, I like being under the radar, so, that's maybe what's best. I don't know. Right now I'm just, limping along in terms of the, money I'm making here. And I'm limited. I have a limited number of people, not limited number of people who really, watch all that I put out or are interested in my, content on a daily basis. It's, maybe 2,000, 3,000, I don't know. Maybe more, but it's definitely under 10 or certainly under 20. And so, that's a lot of people, but it's not in the social media realm of things. And this is an area I'm weak in. I'm not a networker, right? So I'm not, I don't know how to just make people feel happy about, I'm a person that is more confrontational in what I do here. Like, for the most part, I'm not going to make people feel good about themselves who listen to my videos, because eventually, they might feel some congruence. They might feel some kindred spirits, spiritship, or whatever you would call it, being kindred spirits or whatever it might be. But eventually I'll say something that hurts people's beliefs. And, if I didn't talk about Sound of Freedom, that probably would have been better for my channel if I kept that to myself. But, I can't do that. I mean, I'm already having to censor myself just being on YouTube, and that sucks, right? I mean, that's not great. And, to censor myself because I don't want to, not tell you guys the truth because I'm worried about losing, followers or viewers or whatever it is. That's, at that point you just need to pack it in, right? If I, can't do what I'm good at, and that is just tell the blunt truth that as I see it, then, what's the purpose of me even making videos? And so, that's where I'm at. And, these ideas, I mean, it's what this person wants, right? Like this person they want, some sort of, they want to influence me the way I've influenced them. And it's not really possible. Like if you have something to offer, like I was saying, my wife and I are painting a truck. I'm starting to sand the truck, and my wife's going to paint it. She's the better painter, certainly more meticulous, better, this kind of thing. And so, I'm looking forward to going out there and sanding the truck. And it's all because some viewer reached out to me and gave me his professional opinion what I should do with the rust on my truck. And, over a period of months and me starting to sand the rust off the truck, I realized, hey, I could sand this truck down to almost the metal, and I don't have to do it all the way because I'm going to paint it with some sort of epoxy. And this is what this guy recommended. And so that's helpful. Like that's somebody who's making my life better and helping me solve a problem. I have an old pickup truck that, runs great, but is starting to rust. And now he's solved that problem, and he has something to offer me. But most people, at least as far as I know, there's people who said things about supplements or sent me a video about health or something that I use all the time. There are people who have actually helped me in various ways through links or whatever it might be. And that's great, and that's, that is what it is. But, it's not going to be dialogue or, your beliefs aren't going to affect me in some positive way. Like I'm not, I don't get, I don't benefit from listening to other people's beliefs, And so, if that's going to cause me to have less subscribers, then that's just how it's going to be. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.